The holidays continue, and we are continuing to cover movies that bring us cheer. In Happiest season, we travel with Harper Caldwell, who is bringing her girlfriend Abby home to meet her parents for the very first time. The only problem? She has yet to come out to them as gay, and they are extremely conservative. It's Christmas, with a twist of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm on the couch. All right, this is Ronald, and I am on the couch after watching Happiest Season. Happiest Season on Hulu, directed by Clea DuVall, written by Clea DuVall and Mary Holland, starring Kristen Stewart, Mackenzie Davis, Alison Brie, Aubrey Plaza, Dan Levy, Mary Holland, Victor Garber, Anna Gasteyer, and Mary Steenburgen. Okay, again, you can find this movie on Hulu. This is a movie about a couple named Harper and Abby. Harper played by Mackenzie Davis, Abby played by Kristen Stewart, who end up through a series of impulsive circumstances going home to Harper's family for Christmas. As they arrive there, Harper tells Abby that not only do her parents not know that she is a lesbian, that they also think that Abby is her roommate, and that's what she has told them. So walking into the situation, Abby must now conform to these standards because the family is pegged as extremely conservative, and they would not accept the fact that Harper is a lesbian and coming out. So that is the premise for the story. And again, hijinks ensue. This movie, I was sitting here watching, I was like, this feels familiar. I've seen this movie before. What is this movie? And I realized that this movie is Meet the Parents. It's Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. It's the same movie where there is a person walking into a situation, desperately wanting the approval of people, but unable to get it for reasons that are essentially outside of their control, whether it be the preconceived notion of the people that they're talking to, whether it be their own partner's inability to equip their own family for this person coming in, their inability to make it easier for the visitor coming in. All of those things are happening here. This movie has strong Meet the Parents energy. It occurred to me that that except for this being about sexuality and except for them actually being lesbians, a lot of the beats that this movie hits are the exact same as Meet the Parents, from, the disapproving parents, from the ex, the ex being around and in some ways being a stumbling block. I think they did a better job in Happiest Season with using the ex as more than just a prop for jealousy, or just as an object of jealousy, if you will. I definitely think Happiest Season is a much better movie. And I think the stakes are higher because it is about sexuality and it is about people's identities, as opposed to kind of the parents just not liking Ben Stiller because he's a male nurse and he's not a doctor, and he didn't do so well at when they tried to say he lied about the MCATs and all the suspicions that came with it. The thing that gets me is Harper's obliviousness. Here she is bringing Abby into a situation in which she has forced Abby to now be closeted, and she is closeting herself. And for some reason, she's trying to have her cake and eat it too. So she wants to have her partner with her for Christmas, but she's preventing her partner from being her full self. That felt worse to watch. And at times when we're watching Abby kind of cope with this and find comfort in little things, including in a person that we don't expect her to find comfort in. I don't want to spoil it for you, but in finding that comfort, we find ourselves rooting for Abby in a way that I feel like makes us stray from what I think the movie wants us to root for. And when I say that, I mean the movie wants us to root for Abby and Harper to be together at the end. And by the time we get to the real climax of this movie, I am convinced that while Harper may not be a bad person, she is certainly a complicated one, and one that probably shouldn't be in a relationship with Abby if she can't get past this. Watching this, that didn't feel good to me. It didn't feel good to have to watch someone kind of grapple with that. Now, again, because this is a movie where the plot isn't necessarily revolutionary, it does beg the question about representation and the idea that since we're doing a fish out of water story, and since it naturally lends itself to a situation like this, where you're bringing a partner home and you have to closet yourselves, it just tells me that representation isn't as hard as Hollywood and the creatives make you think that it is. Whether it be Black folks, whether it be sexuality, whether it be disabled folks, there are ways to include them in even stories like this, because I don't think this story was revolutionary by any means. I think by the time it gets to the end, it ties things up in almost too neat of a bow, when maybe it could have been a little more messy and audiences still would have been satisfied because it would have been a natural ending to the movie. But I still feel like what they did with this movie was, while it starts off in a very, okay, this is a new take on this type of story, it ends in a place that's like, oh no, this is this is the same take on that type of story. There's a few things I think that they think there's a blended family, a biracial family in there. And there's, of course, you have lesbians at the center of the story. But this is still a story that's largely about white folks with money. So it doesn't feel as countercultural or as revolutionary as I think the writers or the producers would think it is. And I'm not saying that you necessarily have to address privilege in every single story that comes out, but watching something like this, it just seems like without, addressing the privilege, or without saying like, okay, well, these are still rich people with money with, 8 bedrooms and a house and all that. Like it felt like subjecting Abby to this type of story and subjecting this character to this type of family. It felt like there were multiple layers that had more to do with just the sexuality, which I think is the big selling point of this movie. And one of the big parts of it is that, well, her parents are conservative. She doesn't want to tell them. And I don't know if they did a very good job with depicting the parents in a way that deemed them to be, so conservative that they're homophobic. Because when I read the premise for this movie, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting, like a lot of stories of the LGBT community, is that they were going to have people that just like, there's people that, put them out the house. They beat them. They sent them to camps, to, Christian, super conservative camps to, as they say, pray the gay away and all that. They do all kinds of things like that. And I feel like those stories are a lot more common than stories like this one, in which it's a coming out story in which they're like, well, my parents are conservative. I don't know what they're going to think. And when we get to the point where the coming out actually happens, it almost felt like them being conservative was a bit of a red herring. And I'll leave it at that, because again, I don't want to spoil this for anyone. I think the acting in this movie is fantastic. I think everyone is nailing their parts. Mary Steenburgen is crushing her role. She's conservative, but judgy, nice, but rude, like really has high expectations of her family, but still like just a little bit shady with the things that she says. Victor Garber does a great job as the preoccupied dad. Always enjoy seeing him stuff. I always see him as the shipbuilder on Titanic, but he was really good in this role. He's running for mayor, so he's distracted, but he just wants his family to be in line. So he's really, really involved with the details of them being in line, but not really concerned with the details of their life. All of the daughters play a different role. Of course, Mackenzie Davis is playing Harper, and of course she has her, like, she's at the center of the story, so we understand what's going on with her. We know more about her than others. But Alison Brie is playing her sister, and when she comes back, she has twins and a seemingly perfect family, but you can tell there's tension with that, and she plays that role very well. And then Mary Holland plays the other sister who just wants to be involved, wants people to like her, will do whatever it takes for everyone to like her and to be involved in the rest of the family. And she plays that role just so well. Everyone does. And Kristen Stewart she has a lot of heavy lifting to do emotionally in this movie. And I think she gets a bum rap for a lot of the work that she's done, especially when it starts with the Twilight stuff. But I've seen her kind of blossom in acting in this. Her and the stuff that she does, the work that she does in this film with Aubrey Plaza, who is extremely charming in this movie, probably the most charming I've ever seen her in any movie. They're nailing their roles. The acting in this is it's high caliber acting. Everyone's doing a great job. Lots of emotion, lots of range. There's humor. And it's funny. It's situationally funny. There's lines that are funny. Oh, and I almost forgot about Dan Levy, who just shows up being himself and just nails it every time. He's the real comic relief in this movie. Just kind of pops in, tells jokes, and then, has more of an extended role as the movie goes on. But just watching all of them together, it's enjoyable. It's fun. It's light. It feels like they were all very aware of what was going on. They all played well with each other. It worked. The acting in this movie worked. I think what hurts this movie, and when I say hurts, I don't mean by a lot, but what hurts this movie is just it again. And I think this happens. I'm starting to think that this just happens with holiday movies, is that they got to write to a happy ending. Like, you can't have a Christmas movie with a complicated ending. And I think that's just what the executives say. It's just like, nah, we got to tie this up neater than that. It's Christmas. And I don't know if this movie got the ending that it deserved. I don't know if this movie was, if it landed where it should. I think there were some very complicated themes that they started with. And I am a part of not really conservative family, but our family's like, we're churchy. We're a church family. And I've always had hesitation with bringing partners home. I'm heterosexual, but even bringing women home who are not Christian, who are not saved, who are not in the church, there's always some hesitation there. And I feel like they nailed the complex emotions that someone can feel being in love with someone, but being hesitant to bring them around your family because you don't want your family to say or do anything that's going to hurt this person. And I feel like that always feels complex and hard. And I think this movie nailed it, but it also nailed the fact that if you're going to be in those situations, if you're going to fall in love with someone, then the onus is really on you to wrangle your family. The onus is really on you to take those steps to make sure that your partner feels comfortable coming into a situation that you're bringing them into. And I think this movie does a good job with that. But then at some point, the Christmas just takes over. Christmas is like, well, nope, this is a Christmas movie. We got to do this. And it just feels like it could have went in a direction that maybe would have made more sense. Maybe would have been more satisfying, and they just chose not to do that. You could see when they're just like, nope, Christmas movie, we're going to end it here. This is what we're going to do. And we're going to have a grand gesture and blah, 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 blah. And that's where I felt like it was very Meet the Parents. Very much like, okay, we got to get to this point where they just fed up, they had enough, and then we'll have some reconciliation. And it's like, it hits those beats. And when it's hitting those beats, all of a sudden it becomes less of the movie that you started watching and more of the movie that you kind of expect at Christmas time. And I think that's the biggest problem I had with this movie. I liked it though. I liked it. I think this is a great Christmas movie. This is a great new classic. I think this is a great, this is just a great new Christmas movie that you can add to the canon and that I think people are going to enjoy. I don't know if it'll necessarily be a classic or something that we're quoting from like Home Alone or any of those, but it certainly is a strong entry this year. And I think that people should watch it, and it's worth seeing and worth talking about with families, by yourself, with your friends, with your loved ones, whoever. I liked it. I thought it was a good movie. I think that if they had gone and leaned into the complicated portions and not shied away from the complexity, I think this would have been a 4-star movie. I'm sorry, I keep saying stars. I think this would have been a 4 Jingle Bell movie, 4 Jingles movie. But I think because they shied away from it and kind of just landed it at a Christmas, just like, no, it's a Christmas movie, we're going to end it here. I think it ends up being a 3.5 Jingle Bell movie. So I give it 3.5 jingles out of 5 Jingle Bells. So 3.5. But yeah, I think everyone should see it. I think it's good. I enjoyed it. I think it was brought a lot of cheer. By the end, I accepted it. Was not perfect, but I accepted it. And I think people should see this movie. So again, that's Happiest Season on Hulu. And yeah, with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of ohitsBigRon Studios. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. To find out more about this show and other ohitsBigRon Studio shows, follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ohitsBigRon. That's at ohitsBigRon. If you like this show, check out our sister show, Time Well Spent. Leaving the Theater will be back soon, but until then, I'll be here on the couch.